Welcome. I am Mariam and I will be guiding you through my topic I have researched as a social innovator for quite a while now. Last year, I researched the inequalities people faced based on their skin tone. Events such as the coronavirus outbreak have spiked the number of Asian hate crimes worldwide, and the murder of George Floyd has sparked the numerous protests for Black Lives Matter, demanding for public safety and equality. As I've always been interested in human behavior, I tried to find what it means when you exclude and include people. This interest has remained, except it has taken a bit more of an economical and social aspect. I wanted to look at a different side of inequality, trying to broaden my knowledge on this topic. I looked at different sides of inequality that are based on success, someone's social class, or their financial situation, which brings me to the term economic inequality. If we look back in time, we see that capitalism has not always been the end-all be-all. In the Middle Ages, ordinary peasants lived on their own piece of land that they used to get all the means necessary to live. Food and water were accessible to all. It was even a right for everyone to have their own land in order to sustain their life. Moving on to the 15th century, wealthy nobles were looking for ways to maximize their capital. They realized that with their power, they could yield more food than usual if they have more hands available. At that time, no one needed a job or wages as everyone had their own piece of land, food and water. Nobles would try to find ways to get them to work for them on their lands in order to make profit. Doing this cost the peasants their land, homes and safe lives they were used to living before privatization. This marks the beginning of a capitalistic society, where the basic needs suddenly cost money, where the top profits off the bottom. However, this hunger for power and money grew to be a much bigger threat to society and the planet. The Golden Age is a name we often use to mark the birth of a rich nation. From art to trade to science discoveries, the West enjoyed an economic boom that had never been seen before. We look at how it has benefited us, but everything comes with a price. The fact is, when it comes to a capitalistic society, one's success means someone else's downfall. In 1492, Christopher Columbus set sail to discover a new way to reach India. When he arrived in Cuba, he noticed the people were a civilization very unlike his own. In his journal, he would note down things like, "They are so free with their possessions, no one would believe it. They live in communal buildings and enjoy a remarkable degree of equality." But he also wrote down, "With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want." With this new land stolen from indigenous tribes, the imperialists needed people to work on plantations. This led to yet another tragic time period in history: slavery. Using slaves from Africa was their key way of gaining maximum amounts of profit and reducing costs. How much did Western states gain from this enormous quantity of free labor? It is estimated that the United States alone benefited from a total of 222,505,049 hours of forced labor between 1619 and the abolition of slavery in 1865. That is worth $97 trillion today. Putting that into perspective, it makes sense how the West is so rich today and will remain to be. Having a head start not only means being ahead, it means hindering those around you so they don't even make as much of a chance like you do. Economic inequality is the unequal distribution of income and opportunity between different groups in society. It is a concern in almost all countries around the world, and often people are trapped in poverty with little chance to climb up the social ladder. Fast forward to present day. Corona has taken the world by storm. However, not everyone is affected the same way by this virus. In fact, even the distributions of the corona vaccines are influenced by money. The head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, states that rich countries consist of only 15% of the world's population. But they own 45% of all the vaccines. Meanwhile, the low and middle income countries consist of half the world's population, but only received a mere 17% of the corona vaccines. How interesting. We all have the same functioning bodies, we are all human, yet a certain small amount of humans have the priority of receiving the cure for a virus we all face. Financial inequality has gone as far as influencing people's health, and it is frightening. This gap manifests in our health, bank accounts, and attitudes. How often have you seen pictures of people doing voluntary work in Africa to show off on social media? Have you ever stopped and wondered what the intention of their picture is? Is this to do good for the people or to do good for their ego? Those from rich countries going on humanitarian trips to help poor communities have the means to pay thousands to have a plane ticket and stay, but while they are there is no transformative change happening for the good. This shows the crazy difference financial positions can make, as people from rich countries often do not offer help on an upstream level, but rather on the surface solutions. There is this feeling of wanting to help someone in poverty, but instead of strengthening them, they prefer to continue in this savior narrative forever. Attempting to save the world in 5 days will not lead to transformation if it is just for praise. Further connecting it to what Jason Hickel talks about in his book called The Divide, he mentions that we in the Western world are always fed this idea of helping the poor countries by donating money. However, how helpful is this in the end? We tend to see the world as one big race, and each country are separate entities who need to run themselves in this race. Some are faster than others, and that is normal. Except, this isn't a race at all. All countries are connected in their international affairs. The Western world give out loans to poor countries which they inevitably have to pay back somehow. All in the lie of, they are just underdeveloped. In 1949, American President Truman mentioned the following in his speech. We must embark on a bold new program for making the benefits of our scientific advances and industrial progress available for the improvement and growth of underdeveloped areas. It must be a worldwide effort for the achievement of peace, plenty, and freedom. Not only did this narrative make people feel good about themselves for contributing, but it also sets the narrative of the developed, smart, and rich us, which is the North, and the poor, underdeveloped, dumb South. Certain aspects such as political issues, which are far out of the control of NGOs and charities, make it impossible to let these countries develop. The West is mostly responsible for this. From colonialism to slavery to meddling with politics or even as far as going to war, simply donating some spare euros is not enough to transform and change these countries to let them develop. So then, what does help? I have been talking for minutes on what is going on in the world and what's wrong in the world, but surely there's a way we can fix things, right? Yes and no. A societal issue isn't fixed like that. However, the we that I mentioned is just what we need in order to work towards a solution. It is important to realize that there is no one size fits all for problems. Each country, each city, each community, and each person require a specific and unique situation to consider. Which leads me to globalization. This term consists of global and local, and it describes a product or service that is distributed globally but adjusted on local level. If we take this method of globalization and use it instead of products, use it for solutions, that might just be what we need. There doesn't have to be one way. Multiple ways will only help us understand diversity and respect our differences. Instead of having a top-down approach where the top fixes or finds a solution for the rest, it should be a bottom-up approach. Like a pyramid, the lowest layer, the foundation, is the strongest part of the pyramid. If we start on smaller scales locally, changes will follow. Which is why I will be taking action as a member of Quiet Community in Den Bosch to change the system step by step. Quiet is an organization that helps those living in silent poverty by giving them a voice, an experience, and opportunities. Examples of their work are actions like collaborating with local businesses in order to help those living in poverty, like the local Afghan restaurant offering free spots for those living in poverty to eat. Quiet also offers opportunities to those having special talents like graphic design and letting them work at their office in order to give and take equally. Initiatives like these from the locals and entrepreneurs in Den Bosch is just what we need in the future. We need to change together to have a future without hierarchy. We can work towards a future that is not like a pyramid, but that is far more equal and not just in social classes. A post-capitalistic society where we base our worth on our talents and energy and not our financial situation. As opposed to a trip abroad where someone from a higher class tries to fix something for someone else, we can turn to our surroundings and see how we can equally benefit from each other. In order to change, we need to exchange.